I'm going to talk about MaxAI. This is an area that is of continued interest to all of our customers. We get a lot of feedback, both from customers on it and even from our internal people. I was on a meeting just before this where we were talking about customers having questions about Deliver, and they were looking at the insights that they were getting out of MaxAI, and even some of our marketing experts were getting help from MaxAI to answer questions that they weren't sure. So the way that this tool is developing, it's extremely usable and it's becoming extremely valuable to people. So some of the things that we've done in this release with Max, the first is just a legal or compliance thing. So we put permission option or permission element into the system so that you actually have to opt in order to be able to use MaxAI. And some of this is to deal with compliance and governance, noticeability that you're actually using an AI system. So this is based on some of the regulatory rules that are out, or the regulations that are out there about the use of AI and the way that has to be deployed in a system. So we've done work for that. The next thing that we did is we worked on MHS, which is kind of the billing system, and integrating that with MaxAI. Because one of the questions that we get a lot is, how do I know what I've used? Particularly with Gen AI service being token-based and tokens not really aligning to a word, and different types of models consuming more or less tokens. It can be difficult to understand based on the amount that you've been given in the system, how much capacity do you have for additional Gen AI usage? How much have you actually consumed? And so this is something that integrates with the billing system to make it much easier to understand what you're entitled to and what's actually been consumed and used by the system. And then lastly, we've done some work around context retention and memory management. And one of the things that's really important with this is that this enhances the conversations that you can have with Max. So when you're dealing with generative AI models, that context is really crucial to being able to have consistent conversations that are going to add value, where the model is able to reference things that have happened and decisions that are made before, and then use that in subsequent decisions or in subsequent things in the part of the conversation. I've got examples of all of these that I'm going to share next. So let's start with the consent piece. So this is some of the things that you'll see. This is the actual agreement in the MaxAI interface that you have to agree to in order to get your consent to be able to use the system. So when we talk about third-party AI services here, we are talking about OpenAI. That's who we're primarily using, although in the future, there is the possibility for on-premise LLMs. We're actively working on that as well. So if you select agree here, this gives you full access to MaxAI. So this is just something that you'll have to use, you have to go through in order to be able to use this portion of the system. You may need to have it vetted by your legal team, but we've made this available so that you can be aware of what the agreement we're exposing in the interface for you to be able to use MaxAI. The AI entitlements through MHS. So this is tied right now to the MaxAI license, and it's looking at the token capacity that you have. So this is what you're going to be able to use in order to utilize those Gen AI features in the system. So every time you do something with MaxAI where you're interfacing with an LLM or interfacing with the conversational interface or with the report insights, it's going to use some number of tokens. And this is going to give you a clear measurement of what you've actually consumed and what's remaining out of the amount that we give as part of the license there. Right now, if the token balance reaches 0, we're going to restrict the services. There are ways that you can get around that, like will enable you to either purchase additional tokens to use. The cost there is not very great, but we'll provide that option so that you'll be able to make sure that that you don't have any interrupted service based on consumption of the system. And then context switching. So this is what's really exciting. This is this is moving in the way that we're trying to move in order to get additional value out of MaxAI. So we've got right now, in this example, you can see the user is starting with a question about journeys where it's going through documentation, and then they're asking about information in the system. So this is report or system data insights, and then they're asking about different detailed information in the system for a different section of it. So you have three very distinct conversations that have all been asked here in this. And then here, when we start thinking about it in context, you can see that the user can start out, they can ask a question about something. And so in this case, it's the size of a particular segment. And then after you ask that question, you're able to ask subsequent questions to drill into that information more. So once you ask that, you can ask the first question, you can ask follow-up questions based on that, and the system is going to remember the responses it gave you before, the queries before, and use that to shape the response that happens in the future. So in this case, it actually identifies that it doesn't have enough information to answer the question, is not clear enough, so it's prompting the user for more information, and then responding based on drilling into the first query that was asked to it. And so you can see in this that this gives you the ability to not just ask a single question and get a response, but you can ask a series of things to Max and use those questions to layer one upon another to get to the ultimate answer that you're trying to get to. So that's the stuff that I had to present about Max.